So our model today is Jennifer. Jennifer's 48 and she did have some old permanent makeup in her skin, but she had it done 4 to 5 years ago, and we can see that it's nicely faded out now. So she's got a little bit of rouge left in the skin, but that's more than faded enough for us to do the treatment on top. So we're going to start with the mapping. So first thing we need to do is sketch the shape of the eyebrow that we're going to work within. So to do that, I first just look at the client's face. I consult with them to ask what they want to achieve with this new round of permanent makeup. But whatever shape we do, it's really important that we stay within the natural confines of the client's eyebrow. We can enhance them and extend them slightly, but nothing too big and nothing that's going to change their shape too much. So to start with the mapping, I like to use white string, mapping string. I just feel like it shows much clearer on the skin. So I just use white face paint that you can buy on Amazon. And I use a wet cotton pad and I wipe that through the pot of paint. And then I use just some thread, just some normal thread, sewing thread. And I swipe that through the thread, through the cotton pad to get the white paint on, okay? All right, so first thing, using my eye, I just wanna mark a center point on the client's face. So to do this, I'm following the bridge of her nose. So close your eyes for me, Jennifer. All right, so using the bridge as a guide, I just wanna mark on where I think the center point's going to be, which is there. That looks nice and central to me. So now I'm going to mark the start of her eyebrow. And I do this using where her natural hair already sits. So we're going to mark here. And then again, just using my eye, I'm going to judge where I think that is on the other side to make a nice even space in between these two areas here. I'm going to take that one a bit further back. Now we'll also use a Symmetry app on my phone shortly to really make sure that these marks are where they're supposed to be. But for now, we'll just mark on the points just using our eye. So put more paint on the string. So now I'm going to position where I want the brow to start at the bottom and the top. So pulling the string taut, I use my ring fingers and rest those in her temple. So I know that this string is straight. And I'm just going to mark on where I think the bottom of the brow needs to be. Again, I'm using her natural hair as a guide. And on the top here. There. Now I've noticed that Jennifer has some asymmetry in her eyebrows. When there's asymmetry, as artists, we always want to try and correct asymmetry slightly, but when there's a large degree of asymmetry, we're not going to be able to get them symmetrical, and that's okay. Everybody has asymmetry in their face. Our job as artists is to try and make them a bit more symmetrical, but not completely symmetrical that it alters the shape of their natural eyebrow too much. So we're going to do what we can with Jennifer, but we may not be able to get them completely symmetrical. All right, so now I've marked the center, the front of the brow, the bottom and the top. I'm going to mark in where the tail needs to end. Now to do that, I like to start from where their lip is and go to their outer corner of their eye. And that gives us the end of the tail. So we'll turn your head slightly this way. So from the lip to the edge of the eye, and that marks where the end of her eyebrow should be. Now for the arch point, I use her pupil. So if you could open your eye for me, Jennifer. I'm just going to put more paint on my cotton pad. Turn to the camera a bit. So if you just look at a fixed spot on my face, just look at the tip of my nose. So I'm going to use the pupil of her eye. So again, going from the middle of her lip to the outer edge of her pupil, and that marks where the arch point should be. So then I just put a straight line there. Okay, so we want to get these points now onto the other side of her eyebrow. To do this, I just like to use a maths caliper because it just gives me the most accurate measurement. So to do that, I just dip one point of the caliper in the white paint to make a little bit of paint on the tip. And then if you close your eyes again for me. So first, I'm just going to make sure that those boxes at the front are of the same distance, which they are. And then from the middle point, I'm going to take the caliper out to the arch point. And then we're just going to copy that over to the other side. There, and I've made a little white mark there. And then for the tail, again, take the measurement from the tail, sorry, the arch to the tail. And then I just want to copy that over. So from the arch to the tail. All right, so now I've got my two marks here. I'm just going to use my mapping string and mark in the lines. So here and here. So now we've got all our key points on the face. We've got the middle, the start, the arch and the tail on both sides. Middle, start, arch and the tail. So now we can start forming the thickness and the shape of the eyebrow. Okay, so more paint on my string. So I always like to start with the higher eyebrow, which is her right side. So I start with the top line going from the highest point here to the arch. So I'm just going to put a nice straight line in here. Make sure that's nice and defined. Good. And then for the tail, so I can clearly see her old permanent makeup in the skin here, so we want to try and cover that. And it sits quite nicely on her brow bone. So I'm going to go from the arch point, follow her brow bone, down to the line that we've drawn here. So that's a nice shape on that side. So to copy this over to make sure that the height of both brows are the same, we want to pull the string tight, put our ring fingers in her temple, stand back and just try and get that string as straight as possible. So starting from the middle, and we want to curve it around and make a mark on her head here. So that's the point where I want to take the other eyebrow up to make sure that it's symmetrical. So again, pull the string tight and we just want to make a nice straight line in her brow there. Now at this point, I would want to get out my Symmetry app and just make sure that the height of the brow is looking symmetrical. But before we do that, let's put in this tail point as well. So again, following the guide of where her brow bone is and also where this old permanent makeup is. We just want to put this mark in here. Stand back and see if that looks symmetrical. And then we get out the Symmetry app and make sure that that's looking good. All right, so now we use the Symmetry app. So here I've just got the Phi Symmetry app. So we position her face, if you look straight at those three lenses. Good. Okay. So zoom in. And to make sure that her face is straight and her eyes are straight, we want to position this white line on her pupils. So we know that her eyes and her face are as straight as possible. Now we bring the red line to the center point, and to make sure that's central, again we can use her eyes, the color of her eyes, or the very start of her eyes to make sure that that's the center point. And I think that's good. Now, for the arch point, we take that out to make sure that the arch is at the same position, which it is. And for the height, we bring this line down. So we can see that her left eyebrow is naturally very higher than her right side. Now, I can see that we're not going to be able to get these perfectly symmetrical because if I don't want to add too much height on this side, but also I don't want to drop this one down too much. So we're always going to have a little bit of asymmetry here. But what I am going to do, I'm going to leave her left one as it is because that's already quite high. And I'm just going to drop the sketch down on this side slightly to bring a bit more symmetry. And then we check the front of the brow and the top of the brow is at the same. So moving on, I'm going to just drop this eyebrow slightly. If you close your eyes for me, Jennifer. So bring the string, pull it tight, and I just want to lower this one ever so slightly to bring it more in line with her right eyebrow. And so then I just want to lower the tail. So from the new mark that I made and then take it out to the tail. So we've lowered this eyebrow slightly. So now this is more, the height is more symmetrical on Jennifer's face. So now we're happy with that. The next point is to just draw the underline. All right, so now we're going to do the underside. So to draw the underside, I just use a white gel pen and I just use my free hand. I don't use a mapping string at this point. So stretching the skin slightly, we just want to start at the bottom. And again, using her natural eyebrow hair as a guide. I'm just going to slowly draw in how I think her new eyebrow should sit. So coming up to the highest point, and then we curve it round and down to the tail. So we can see we've got a nice shape to the eyebrow there. So now I do that on the other side, starting from the front. So my eye's always focused on the space in between the white lines that I'm making. It doesn't matter if this white line here isn't perfect, if it's too thick, it's okay. We're just focused on the empty space in between these white lines. Okay, let's take a look. So that's looking nice to me. I think I can see that this one may be a bit thicker. So I'm just going to go back and make this side a bit thinner. Okay, good. Good. Now, another way to check your thickness of the brow is again to use our caliper. So points I measure are at the front here and the arch point. Yep, and they're looking good. So the last thing to do now is, again, we'll do the Symmetry app to make sure that it's all symmetrical. All right, now with the Symmetry app again, Jennifer, if you can open your eyes and look at those three lenses. So I'm just going to take the photo. Great. We're going to zoom in, use her pupils to line up the grid. And then position the beginning of the brow. Bring those in to make sure it's starting at the same point. And we want to check the height of the brow, which is looking much better now. So you can see by lowering this side, we've got it a lot more symmetrical. And I want to now check the underside of the arch. So I'm going to bring this line up here. And yeah, you can see it's looking good, but I still want to make this side a bit thinner. That's still a bit lower on that side. And I want to check the tail finishes at the same point. So lower that, bring that out. And I think her faces can be slightly off sometimes, so this one doesn't always line up. But I can see that, yes, it's finishing on this same black line here. Good, so I'm happy with this. The only thing I'm going to do is make this side a bit thinner, and then we're ready to draw the pattern. Let me close your eyes again for me. Make this ever so little bit thinner. Good. Just tidy that up a bit. Okay. And then just double check the length of the tail. I'm going to go from the arch to the tail point, and then on this side to make sure it's the same length, which it is. Okay, good. So now we can start with sketching the pattern. So to do that, I use my mapping string again, because we draw our grid on the eyebrow now. So starting at this first large section, we split that in two, and then split it in two again, and then halve it again. Now on the tail section, we split this area in two. 1, 2. And same on the other side. So largest section, halve it, and then halve it again, and then halve it again, and the tail, halve that in two. Good, so that is our grid, which is going to help us now draw the pattern.